Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. As a registered physiotherapist, one of the most common questions I get is my hamstrings are tight, how do I stretch them? Now, although I love it when clients are able to identify a part of their body that needs treatment, a more appropriate question in this case would be, should I be stretching my hamstrings? Now, before I answer this question, if you can hit the like button, because remember, for every like this video gets, someone here gets one cookie. See, the only time we should be stretching a muscle is if it's truly short. See, a muscle likes to be at a given length. It works best at this length, and it's happy at this length. If it gets shortened, it's very unhappy. It works inefficiently, and as a result, it sends out pain signals, which is what we don't want. And only when it's at this shortened length should we be stretching it to get it back to its normal resting length, where it's happy and works efficiently. The same can be said of a muscle that is overstretched or too long. At this length, the muscle is not happy, it's working inefficiently, and as a result, it sends out pain signals. Because this muscle is already overstretched, we would never ever stretch this muscle. We would be contributing to making the problem even worse. So now we have to look at our own hamstrings and determine if they're too short or if they're overly stretched in order to determine whether or not we should be stretching our hamstrings. Now, in order to see if our hamstrings are already overstretched, we have to look at a picture of the hamstrings. We need to see where the hamstring muscle attaches to. What dictates the length of the hamstring muscle is going to be these attachment points. If the attachment points are closer together, the muscle is going to be short. If those attachment points are pulled further apart, the muscle is going to be overly stretched. We can see in this photo of the hamstrings that they attach into our butt bone, also known as the ischial tuberosity of our pelvis. And then the hamstrings attach further down into our knee. These are the two attachment points of the hamstring. It is this first attachment point into the pelvis that we are focusing on today. Because our hamstrings attach into our pelvis, the position of our pelvis will dictate the length of our hamstring muscle. There are three positions or tilts our pelvis can be in. If we take a look at this picture of an anteriorly tilted pelvis, we can see that butt bone or ischial tuberosity, where our hamstring muscle attaches, moves upwards or further away from our knee or the other attachment of the hamstrings. In this example, our hamstrings would be overstretched or in a lengthened position. If you look at this picture of a posteriorly tilted pelvis, we can tell that butt bone or the ischial tuberosity of our pelvis moves downwards or closer towards our knee. So the two attachments of the hamstring are moving closer together, and this results in a shortened hamstring muscle. So now that we know that the position of the pelvis is going to determine the length of our hamstrings, and we know the different positions of the pelvis, we need to determine if our own pelvis is anteriorly or posteriorly tilted. How we're going to determine this is very simple. You are going to stand in front of your mirror, and your body is going to be turned sideways. Grab your shirt and pull it so that it's tight on your back. What we're looking at is the arch in our low back. If we have a very large arch, our pelvis has rotated anteriorly. If we have a flat back, we can tell that our pelvis has rotated posteriorly. Now you can even see our hamstring, how it attaches into our butt here. If I was to anteriorly rotate my pelvis, my hamstring is being pulled upwards. It's being lengthened. Now, if I posteriorly tilt my pelvis, my hamstring is going downwards, it's being pulled downwards, and my muscle is being pulled together, or it's shortening. Now, if you've determined that you do have an anterior pelvic tilt, the last thing you want to do is stretch your hamstrings. I repeat, do not stretch your hamstrings. You are already stretching an overstretched muscle, and this is just going to exacerbate your pain and your stiffness. The reason your hamstrings feel tight is not because they're short, but because they're always overstretched. That pelvis and your knee, where those attachments of the hamstrings are, they're moving further and further away, so it's pulling that hamstring further and further apart, and that produces that tight sensation. Now, Cody, the title of your YouTube video is Tight Hamstrings, Home Fix. But if you're telling me not to stretch them, what am I going to do? Well, since our muscle is overly stretched, the only way to shorten that is by strengthening the hamstrings. Now, what happens when we strengthen a muscle? The muscle contracts. It gets shorter. This is exactly what we want to happen. By incorporating targeted hamstring strengthening exercises into your daily exercise routines, you're going to 1. Fix your tight hamstrings, 2. Correct the anterior tilt in your pelvis, and 3. By strengthening the hamstring muscles, it's going to have the additional benefit of stretching your tight hip flexors, which will further help to reduce any pain or stiffness you're feeling. Now I'm going to give 4 examples of hamstring strengthening exercises you can do at home, and I'm going to show them to you in a progression from easiest to hardest. The first exercise is an isometric long-legged bridge. You're going to bend your knees slightly, digging your heels into the ground. By squeezing your bum, you're going to lift your hips as high as you can. You're going to hold this for 10 seconds, and you're going to do this for 10 reps. You should feel this exercise in your hamstrings and your glutes. The second exercise is marching bridges. The key with this exercise is you want to keep your hips as high as you can by squeezing your bum. You're going to lift one leg at a time, only about 4 to 6 inches off the ground. You are going to perform 8 marches each leg for 1 set and do 3 sets. Exercise 3, eccentric heel slides. From the top of a bridge, you're going to slowly let your heels move out away from your butt. Count to 4 seconds on the way out. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to try to perform 12 reps, and you're going to try to do 3 sets. Exercise 4, full range heel slides. The key is keeping your hips as high off the ground as you can throughout the entire exercise. Let your heels move out away from your butt, then pull them back in towards your bum for 1 rep. Perform 12 reps and 3 sets. In summary, most of you out there have an anteriorly rotated pelvis or an anteriorly tilted pelvis. And this means you should not be stretching your hamstrings, but in fact, the fix is strengthening those hamstrings. Choosing 1 or more of the 4 exercises I showed you in this video and incorporating them into your daily exercise routines will go a long way in fixing your tight hamstrings and bulletproofing those hamstrings to prevent future injury. As always, please like this video, please subscribe, and please leave a comment below letting me know how you like this video.